Now, to be completely fair to Star Wars fans, they will read into just about everything. Even the most mundane scenes in the franchise have some arcane hidden meaning, and so a lot of the time it admittedly feels like fans strain themselves in the pursuit of added depth. Yet there are also undeniably times where scenes operate on a more thoughtful, contemplative level, and so can easily be missed. And of course, there are those scenes which have had their meaning enhanced and fleshed out after the fact additions to the canon. And that's what we're here to talk about today. As I'm Jules, this is WhatCulture.com, and these are 10 Star Wars moments deeper than you think. Number 10. ObiWan visits the Jedi Archives. Attack of the Clones. Obi-Wan pays a visit to the Jedi Archives to research the mysterious planet Kamino. When it's nowhere to be seen in the records, Obi-Wan suggests that they must be incomplete, only to be rather brusquely informed by the Archives librarian that this cannot be the case. As she says, if an item does not appear in our records, it does not exist. While on a superficial level this simply speaks to the shadowy nature of Kamino, where the clone army is being secretly built for the Galactic Republic, on another level it undermines the dogmatic and even arrogant potential of the Jedi Order in its dying days. This librarian was clearly offended by Obi-Wan's suggestion that there could possibly be a planet concealed beyond her or the Jedi Archive's knowledge, believing it to be simply inconceivable. This even falls perfectly in line with Yoda's earlier comment about a major personality defect that many Jedi have, a flaw more and more common amongst Jedi to be sure of themselves they are. Number 9. Leia's British accent. A New Hope. One of A New Hope's most notable eccentricities is Princess Leia's changing accent in the early stages of the movie. Though Leia predominantly speaks with an American accent throughout the Star Wars series, she slips into a distinctly British-sounding accent when speaking with Grand Moff Tarkin. Fisher stated in the past that the real reason for the accent was that she had been living in England for a while before shooting, and this scene was the first one that had been shot. But in 2016, a canonical explanation was given in Claudia Gray's novel Star Wars Bloodline, where it was stated that Leia affected the aristocratic accent in an attempt to mock Tarkin. In an interview with Entertainment Weekly to promote the novel, Gray further expanded on the decision to explain Leia's accent. In interviews, Fisher laughs at herself for that scene that she has with Tarkin in A New Hope, because Carrie Fisher has an English accent in that scene, and she doesn't in any other scene in the movie. She sort of laughs at her younger self for being influenced by Peter Cushing, but I thought, I'm going to use that. So there's an explanation in Bloodline that she actually is making fun of Tarkin. She's mocking his accent in that moment. She remembers that's what she was doing. So that moment has been explained and it's no longer a problem. And while technically this is a retcon, Bloodline is a canon novel. So for all intents and purposes, it has retroactively deepened the meaning of that scene. If it works, it works. Number 8. All the Severed Hands. There are few tropes in the Star Wars franchise more commonplace than a character having one of their limbs, typically their hand, cut off by a lightsaber strike. And while this might seem like nothing more than a recurring visual motif for sake of poetry, there's actually much more to it than that. In the 2007 reference book Jedi vs. Sith: The Essential Guide to the Force, which, while not officially canon, contradicts nothing in existing Star Wars lore, it's revealed that the act of cutting off an opponent's hand during a lightsaber battle is a technique known as chomai. Chomai, meaning to cut off the weapon hand, is a lightsaber skill taught to Jedi as an honorable way of disabling an opponent without killing them. Given that George Lucas was heavily influenced by samurai iconography when constructing the Star Wars universe, it totally tracks that he'd reimagine an act of dismemberment as one of dignified mercy. Number 7. General Grievous coughs before calling Palpatine. Revenge of the Sith. Now, what do you think of when you first hear the name General Grievous? After the fact that he can quad-wield lightsabers, it's surely that he sports a rather hacking asthmatic cough, right? And while Grievous's cough underlines the fact that he's a cyborg with some flesh and blood organs, namely his lungs, it also helps accentuate his vulnerability during one key scene. When Grievous speaks with Palpatine's hologram, we hear him loudly clear his throat before the call begins. Considering that we never see Grievous do this in front of anyone else, it's fair to assume that he wants to keep his cough on the down low from the guy upstairs, for fear of looking weak or unfit to him. And while it's well known by this point how much fear Palpatine strikes into the hearts of basically everyone around him, this scene also cements that Grievous is self-conscious of his cough and doesn't want to lose favour with Palpatine by exposing it. Number 6. Luke enters the dark side cave. The Empire Strikes Back. In The Empire Strikes Back, Luke Skywalker famously enters the dark side cave whilst training with Yoda on Dagobah and is exposed to his worst fear. Here, Luke encounters a vision of Darth Vader, strikes him down, and then is horrified to see his own face within the mask. Though many many interpret this scene simply as proving that Luke wasn't ready to fend off the dark side and thus succumb to fear, there is actually a bit more to it than that, because Luke's real failure was in failing to listen to Yoda and allowing himself to surrender so immediately to fear. Yoda told him that the cave contains only what you take with you, and in Luke's case, he brought his biggest flaw to the surface. No matter how improbable Vader's presence in that cave was, Luke immediately drew his lightsaber and struck. Luke's face wound up in the Vader's mask because Luke was scared and primed to attack. He didn't heed Yoda's advice, where he said, "Your weapons, you will not need them," and he should have felt the situation out before considering violence. And so the lesson was as such: if Luke continued down the path of fearful violence, he would indeed become the very thing that terrified him the most. Number 5. The Resistance destroys the Dreadnaught, The Last Jedi. The Last Jedi kicks off with Poe Dameron launching a counterattack against the First Order fleet. Poe orders Paige, sister of Rose, to drop a bomb payload onto a First Order Dreadnaught, which destroys it. However, before Paige drops the payload, on the right-hand side of the screen we can see one of the bombs has a message on it. The message is written in the common galactic alphabet of Aurebesh and actually translates to an unexpectedly irreverent message. Han says hi. And so the attack on the Dreadnaught takes on a wholly more symbolic meaning with this in mind, that the Resistance destroyed this First Order vessel in honor of one of their most beloved fallen heroes. Number 4. Padmes Funeral, Revenge of the Sith. Padme's death in Revenge of the Sith is of course a majorly pivotal moment for the Star Wars series as a whole. It both leads to newborns Luke and Leia being hidden from the Sith and cements Anakin Skywalker's tragic journey to the dark side. But Padme's funeral itself is more than just a mere devastating moment. It's actually one which slyly helped light the spark of a fledgling resistance movement. In the 2019 canon novel Queen's Shadow, it's revealed that Padme's former handmaiden was present at the funeral with Naboo security officer Tonra. After being contracted by Bail Organa, the pair go into hiding to investigate the real nature of Padme's death. This was then followed up in the 2020s Darth Vader comic book series, where it's revealed that the handmaiden is now a prominent rebel working against the Empire, yet reluctantly teams up with Vader while looking further into Padme's demise. Again, it's effectively a retcon to imbue more meaning into Padme's funeral after the fact, but knowing that her demise inspired these people and others to join the fight certainly lends it greater import beyond its mere sadness. Number 3. Obi-Wan's final moments, A New Hope. There aren't many Star Wars moments more iconic or unforgettable than Obi-Wan's death in A New Hope, where he lays down his life during a lightsaber duel with Darth Vader in order to help the heroes escape the Death Star. Yet, if we look at this scene in minute detail, it's clear that there's a little more than that going on. In Obi-Wan's final seconds of corporeal life, note that he only lowers his guard after seeing Luke and Leia preparing to escape. He even smirks a little before Vader strikes him, as the last thing he sees as a flesh and blood human is the two twins he sent into hiding almost 20 years earlier, finally reunited. Now, it's well known that George Lucas hadn't yet settled upon Luke and Leia being siblings at the time of A New Hope's release, but the meaning of it slots together so perfectly that it's incredibly easy to ignore that fact. Number 2. Anakin's sand speech, Attack of the Clones. You won't find many Star Wars moments more widely ridiculed than Anakin's infamous sand speech in Attack of the Clones. "I don't like sand, it's coarse and rough and irritating and it gets everywhere, not like here. Here everything is soft and smooth." Without proper context, it's certainly cringeworthy, especially when viewed as part of an apparent romantic flirtation between Anakin and Padme, but there is actually much more to it than that, and honestly, the official Star Wars website really explains it best. It might seem on the surface that Anakin is just complaining about a minor inconvenience, but he's responding to Padme's memory of an idle day on the beach with a comparison of his own life as a slave on the harsh sands of Tatooine. It's a reminder that the two grew up very differently, but fate, or the Force, still brought them together. As much as we all love to laugh at the non-contextual absurdity of the line, it's not quite the silly non-sequitur so many think. It's suffused with meaning about Anakin's childhood and the dynamic between himself and Padme. Yet even the official Star Wars site couldn't fully ignore the fact that the scene had also achieved meme immortality. And number 1, Luke and Leia's reunion, The Last Jedi. One of The Last Jedi's most affecting moments sees Luke and Leia finally reunited near the end of the movie after having spent so many years apart. When Leia tells Luke that she's given up hope on saving her son Ben and that she believes that he's gone, Luke replies with the memorable line, no one's ever really gone, before placing the late Han's dice in her hand. As powerful as this line is, it was recently imbued with much greater meaning courtesy of Beth Revis's brand new canon novel, The Princess and the Scoundrel. The novel recounts Han and Leia's wedding on Endor, which is officiated by none other than Luke himself. During the ceremony, he says, "Those we love are never truly gone," a distinctly similar phrase to his parting words to Leia in The Last Jedi. Canonically, Luke is making a callback to Han and Leia's wedding with these words, which gains even more power as he then passes the dice to her. And there we go, my friends. Those were 10 Star Wars moments deeper than you think. Hope you enjoyed that, and please let me know what you thought about it down in the comment section below. If you want to chat to me further, you can do so over on Twitter at RetroJ, but the O is a 0. We can swing by Instagram, where it's the same handle, RetroJ, but the O is a 0. Hope to see you over there. But before I go, I just want to say one thing. Sometimes in life, it's important to take a step away from things that are causing you stress and give yourself a break, both mentally and physically, because it allows you to gain some perspective and indeed think deeper, which has been the common thread of today's list. And getting that perspective will allow you to see things with fresh eyes, to rebalance your energies, to approach difficult situations better, and sometimes even just when to ask for help. And trust me, there is no shame in that. So take care of yourself, alright? Give yourself that break, because you bloody well deserve it. As always, I've been Jules, you have been awesome, never forget that, and I'll speak to you soon. Bye.